going on, guys? Welcome back to SwampCast. It's Logan, it's EJ. We're coming to you, man. Bowl week. Gators have one of the first bowls being played, too, which can be exciting against Tulane. The Gasparilla Bowl, which we'll get to all that later. EJ, how you feeling? Merry Christmas. It's a great time of the year. We're jolly. We're cheerful.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas, Logan. You know, we got our Christmas plaid on.
Yeah.
You know, that time of year. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so chaotic in college football when you got the transfer portal opening. And just so everyone knows, the transfer portal has to open so that players have a chance to switch schools before the next semester starts. So ideally, it should open like in January after all these bowls and everything, but they got to do it now before the next semester. So that's why it gets so chaotic, because you've got the bowls, you've got, the playoff teams figuring out where they got to go because it's the first year. You have coaches being fired and everything. So it's a crazy time, but it's entertaining. We're entertained, right?
Are you not entertained? No, it's crazy. And also, too, like, bro, when you look at some of these kids going in the transfer portal, it's like they're going to their fourth school. It's like literally every single year they've transferred. There's been a couple guys, man, where it's like, oh my God, like, just find a spot and stay there. So there's a sad element to it, but like you said, very exciting. I mean, you got guys like Jackson Arnold going to Auburn. You know what I mean? Auburn Hugh Freeze having a phenomenal transfer portal year. Oh man, my camera's already being weird. We'll figure it out. We'll get it going. But yeah, Auburn having a phenomenal transfer portal year right now, man. Getting guys in key positions, and yeah, it's getting pretty crazy. So we're gonna kind of start with that, and with all the craziness surrounding the Florida Gators, for example, and go from there. Obviously, the Gators are not, immune to the transfer portal. So let's go ahead and talk about a few of the guys that did go out. So it started with Andy Jean, the Florida Gator receiver, which is pretty much right after the FSU game. Decided to enter his name into the transfer portal. A guy that was very highly thought of and that Gator fans were really excited about when he first came in. 4-star receiver, big body guy. Was one of the highly sought after receivers a while ago. And just kind of never got going. Dealt with a lot of injuries and just could never stay healthy. So that's kind of the main guy. Sucks to see. But a guy that just was never made an impact for us there. And by the way, EJ, if you want to chime in on any of these guys, go for it. I'm just going to kind of read through some of them, but if you want to talk about them, just cut me off. Next one we have is Justice Boone, the edge rusher who somehow got the number 1 jersey, which obviously is something special here at UF. A guy that people were saying last year with him and Princely in the fall camp, they're like, dude, we're going to have the best pass rush in college football with these two. It's going to be dangerous. Boone goes down. Princely steps up. It was almost that people were saying Boone was better than Princely. But then he had, I think, an ACL tear. I think it was non-contact. It was terrible. Comes back. People were super hyped to see him. And just, you had guys like Searcy and LJ McCray getting in there more than him, which was, these are young guys. So that was really weird to see. Just kind of never got back to it, whether it's the injury, I don't know. You could sometimes in fall camp, you also hear great things that never turns out to be true, or you don't hear great things. And then it turns out this guy's the next, Tebow, right? So you never know. A guy that is not, I don't think this really hurts Florida. If anything, it clears up some room for us going forward. After Justice Boone, we had a couple of smaller guys go out. Offensive lineman Mike Williams, edge rusher Bryce Cappers, and edge Quincy Ivory. Quincy Ivory, a guy that was a big recruit coming in. So that's kind of weird to see Quincy put his name in the portal. So these guys, they could come back, kind of like what happened with Damian George, a guy that did put his name in the portal. And then took it right back out a couple days later. That's kind of what we got going on there. Next one we have, this one I think was the biggest one out of all that really hurt us. Jakeem Jackson, the DB, I think it was a redshirt freshman from Osceola, one of my local high schools actually, who just went to the state championship and took the L. But yeah, hometown guy around me. Was really excited to see this guy do something. Gets injured in fall camp this year. Was expected to have that starting role. Still did start early on with Jason Marshall. But he didn't play well because of the injury. He re-aggravated it, was out the rest of the season, and never got going. Corey Raymond, our old DB coach who recruited him, calls him up and says, yo, come to LSU. He goes to LSU. So that one I think really hurts us, man. We're going to have a very young DB group next year. It went from me being very confident in our DB group to being kind of like, who's leaving? What are we doing here? These young guys have to step up. I'm a little worried about our DB in our secondary group because we have a lot of young guys coming in. So we'll see what happens there. Next one, our edge and defensive lineman, Kelby Collins, plans to enter. A guy that, never really made a huge impact. I think had a better year last year, I would say, than this year in particular. But a guy that did make plays and a body that you still kind of want on our defensive line and for like as a depth piece, right? So not very happy with that one either. Very weird. And then a big one that was very funny was Jack Pyburn, a guy that, made a lot of big plays. We were talking about this, me and EJ. We love this guy, brought a lot of energy, was a big leader on this Gator defense. And he just randomly posts something on his story talking about how people are fake and goes into the portal. And stuff came out showing that this guy wanted like $36,000 a month during the year. For during the football season next year, and Billy Napier and his admin were like, hell no, we can go get someone even better than you and spend less money. Jack Pyburn's a great player, but he's not worth that much money. He wanted to be a starter, a guaranteed starter, which is such a weird move, dude. Like, you have to earn that, man. I don't care who you are. Like, if DJ Lagway came out and said, I need to be the expected starter, I wouldn't even like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to fight for that job no matter how talented and good you are. I hate that. That shows that he wasn't really a true Gator, in my opinion. So he's gone. Florida tight end, Arliss Boardingham also entered the transfer portal, a guy that, was never really... He's not really that Kyle Pitts, you know what I mean? That guy that you want to see that's out here making plays constantly. He was probably one of our better tight ends with him and Hayden Hansen, are probably our best receiving tight end. But, never really made a huge impact. But we need a tight end. That's a position piece that we need. That is a necessity, especially in Billy Napier's offense where he does this 12 personnel, with 2 tight ends out here. And so we need depth. I don't know what we're going to do with that. A weird piece to see go away. And linebacker Deuce Spurlock, didn't really know a lot about him, goes into the transfer portal. I believe that's all the guys in the portal right now. I do expect probably a few more after the bowl game. But those are all the guys going into the portal. Elijah Badger's playing in the bowl game. That's some news. Caleb Banks is coming back for another year, which is huge for our defensive line. And I think that's kind of all of the big news there. Trey Wilson said that he's not leaving. He's coming back, which is another huge thing. And we lose a defensive coordinator in his name's slipping my mind. What's going on? Austin Armstrong. There you go. Me and EJ went back and forth on this. We kind of have differing opinions on it. It's hard to know the significance of it, just because we're not behind the scenes, so we don't really know what's going on. But basically, Austin Armstrong, a guy that we bring in from, I think he coached at Southern Miss as the defensive coordinator. They saw a significant uptick in production and turnovers and stuff while he was there. He then gets hired as the linebackers coach for Nick Saban's Alabama team, and then he leaves like 8 weeks later to come to Florida.
Yeah.
Because we offer him the defensive coordinator job. This guy was 29 years old and we offered him. Comes in 30, has the first season. The Gator defense last year was not good. When you look at the big plays led up, explosive plays. We had one of the highest explosive, allowing explosive plays by the offense in the country. We're in the bottom 5 for that. It was unbelievable. You take that away, the defense was very, very efficient down to down, but that doesn't really matter much when you're letting up 30, 50-yard touchdowns throughout the whole year. Look at the Arkansas game last year. It's a great example, right? We were great down to down, but God, they were killing us on these big, big plays. So then he goes and he hires Ron Roberts, a guy that's been in, the college football world for 35 years, right? 40. This dude's been here forever. Been to every college you can imagine. Name one, he's been there. Defense gets better in explosive rate, but not as good down to down rate. But because we had the offenses stay on the field longer, the opposing offenses, that allowed for more turnover opportunities, which led to us winning games like Ole Miss and LSU. With a guy like Austin Armstrong running the defense, we may have not have won those games. So this is a weird thing for me. I'm not a fan of Ron Roberts. He's a very conservative play caller. He's not a guy that's going to win you a national championship as a defensive coordinator, in my opinion, especially in this new world of offense. But he's a guy that can be that can have a stable defense, a defense that's going to be in the top 25 every year. You know what I mean? In that 25 to 20 defensive range. You know what I mean? But he's not gonna ever reach that top 10 defense of status with his defensive play calling style. He's not a Will Muschamp. He's not a Dan Lanning. But we did see an improvement in fundamentals, which I think is huge. I think a big part of Austin Armstrong's issue is he was a young guy trying to teach a very complex system, because he comes from the Kirby Smart and Nick Saban tree, and he just didn't know how to teach the fundamentals. So his players were young. They were confused. They didn't know what was going on. But, EJ, how do you feel about that now that he's gone? You talked about how it frees up space and money. How do you feel about this whole thing?
Yeah, man. A lot going on in the off season. I think
Already.
I know, like never a dull moment. With that, we got to trademark that.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive coordinator thing, like you said, I think it's hard to kind of who was the cause of what. I mean, if you're just looking at it from a fan from the outside, this will technically be what, our fifth defensive coordinator in the last 5 years, technically, because 2021, we had Grantham, then he got fired, and then I forgot who the temporary guy was for the last few games.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was 2 in 1 year. Then you had Patrick Toney come in and be the defensive coordinator in 2022. Then 2020, he leaves. Then 2023, you get Austin Armstrong. Then 2024, it's Austin Armstrong and Ron Roberts. So it's like you have a different defensive coordinator every year the last 5 years. That, to me, is why the defense really hasn't been that good the last 5 years, because there's no time. Like, with the new coordinator comes a new philosophy, comes a new style, and with the philosophy and style comes a new what players fit that mold. Now, I think you can get to that quicker because of the transfer portal, right? Like if you have a defensive coordinator like Austin Armstrong who wants to blitz more, well, you're going to need guys that can cover on the back end if you're going to blitz more. Ron Roberts doesn't really like to blitz a lot. He likes to get pressure with the front four. So you're going to have a really good front four in a Ron Roberts defense. So hopefully, given the fact that now you're going to have, at least these last couple of years, you at least have a similar face on the defense, helps. It's interesting, though, that Austin Armstrong goes to Houston, because that is what tells me a lot, because here's why. And I know, one of my best friends is like, he's the biggest Austin Armstrong fan, just like you. He's got like, no, Austin Armstrong is the reason our defense is good. And so I was just like, dude, I don't know about that. Because, like, here's the thing. So our defense wasn't really that good last year. We can chalk it up to me personally thinking that the offense wasn't really that motivating. to play for. You know, like if you're on defense, it's kind of like, okay, we're not going to score anyway, so why should I even come out here and play hard? Number two, they were very, very young, very inexperienced. Even Caleb Banks, Cam Jackson, his first year on the team, etc. And it's a new scheme. Now, this year, we started to have a little bit of a turnaround with our defense. So the question mark is it Austin Armstrong that turnaround, or was it Ron Roberts being on the team? That was the only different variable that I could really that we could say, okay, well, the only thing different from last year is we have Ron Roberts on the team. And when you look at Ron Roberts' track record, his defenses have been pretty decent. Like he was defensive coordinator at Auburn in 2023, and even though Auburn wasn't that great of a team, their defense was still like a top 30 in the nation defense. And so I'm kind of thinking to myself, okay, if we could have a top 30 defense, hey, that's much better than anything we've been the last 5 years. So, when I look at Austin Armstrong and I see him go to Houston, it kind of makes me think there's some coaches back there. You know, the coaches talk. Maybe it's not really Austin Armstrong. I don't know. Because if it was really him, maybe he's going to like North Carolina to be with Bill Belichick or, one of these bigger schools. So I think it is a loss for the team because he's young, he's energetic. I love his aggressive defensive style. I don't think the defense is necessarily going to fall completely apart. It'll be interesting to see, though, if we get more guys in the transfer portal from the defense. That'll kind of tell us who they had more of a connection with. Um, but I think it's sort of all over the place right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think, I mean, like we were talking about, Austin Armstrong's so young. You know what I mean? Like there's these like Australian punters that are this guy's age. You know what I mean? Like literally, not even joking. It's crazy. So I think he's
Yeah.
super young. Billy Napier took a chance on a guy that's super inexperienced, super young, but has an aggressiveness, like you said, an attitude that, here's my thing. I think it's a massive loss in the sense of having a guy on the sideline hyping guys up because Billy Napier's not doing that. Ron Roberts isn't doing that.
Yeah.
So having a guy that's over here grabbing guys by the face mask, slapping them, like getting them going, having a third down stop and just going, jumping up, dude. And yeah, I think that's such. We saw the defense play with more aggression, more energy, when Austin Armstrong came. Even last year, they were feeling it, So I think Austin Armstrong's going to be a star. I just think teams did not want to take a chance on him yet because they looked, hey, his defense was not statistically the best last year. And he was a defense coordinator only at one other school, and that was Southern Miss for 2-3 years. He had great success there. He brought a team that was in the 80s of defense up to top like 40, top 35 at a Southern Miss school, which is great. And in efficiency in that short amount of time. And so I think he's got a lot to learn. And I think over there in, at Houston, and is Houston's not in the Big 12 anymore, aren't they? In the Big 12? Where are they? Are they in the AAC?
I think they are in the Big 12.
Yeah. Wherever they are.
Right.
I think he's gonna have success, and I think that he's just young. He's not ready. You know what I'm saying? It's you could even take a Kirby Smart. Let's say Kirby Smart's after his second year at Alabama, he goes somewhere else. He probably doesn't have the success he has now because he was under Nick Saban for how many years? Wasn't it like 8 years or something insane? He was under Nick Saban for years, and he was the top head coaching candidate for years. And he waited and waited and waited. He learned. He gathered all the knowledge and all the preparation that Nick Saban had, and he didn't just jump at that first opportunity. He got time to build and to grow as a coach. And so when he got that opportunity, he flourished. And I think that I think Austin Armstrong might just be a little too fresh. Give him 3 years at Houston, and this guy, and maybe a defensive coordinator at another big school, and I think he's ready. I really do. But you got to think, this guy jumped from a what is it, Sun Belt Southern Miss team to playing LSU and Arkansas and Georgia and all these teams, and he just kind of got thrown out there.
Yeah, and a couple of interesting things. So Houston is 26 in the nation in total defense. So he's going, and we're 92 at Florida.
Jeez.
Now, the strength of schedule, this, that, and the other. So he's going to a team that is used to playing decent defense already. And then the other part, I think, is, you know, Austin Armstrong's defense would work if we had those elite defensive players on our team, and I think that will take some time to continue to recruit. We saw that start to work out with Caleb Banks and Tyreek Sapp and Cam Jackson, and then Pyburn when he got in there for a few snaps. I know we talked about him. Um, he wants more snaps apparently. Um, but when he got in there, hey, he was like coming off that edge. And so when you have really good players, his scheme works. Um, we just got to build up toward that. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm hoping that if you were to tell me that he's leaving because Billy Napier said if you really want to be a sole defensive coordinator, we're keeping Ron Roberts on the staff, and I got to bring in an offensive coordinator. We got to have enough room on the salary sheet to pay an offensive coordinator. I could understand that, and I would actually prefer that if we get a good offensive coordinator. Um, so we'll see what happens if we end up getting an offensive coordinator here soon. We do have one extra spot on the staff now because of this departure, and it'll be interesting to see who Billy Napier puts on the staff.
So let me ask you a question, UJ. Let's say Billy Napier doesn't go out and get an offensive coordinator. Are you still happy that we let Austin Armstrong go? Or how do you feel about that? Because there's not a lot of co-defensive coordinating out there. Usually it's one guy. And sometimes having one overhead's way better than having two things in your ear. Because to this day, we have no info on who's calling plays, who's running practices, who's working with who. It's really weird. And here's another thing. Listen, this is a great example. Austin Armstrong gets hired as the linebackers coach. Is what he's known to be. He's a linebackers coach. Ron Roberts comes in, takes over the defense. Let's say Austin Armstrong just focuses on linebackers and some other position groups. Linebackers had their best year under Billy Napier this year. So that could be another thing. You know what I mean? Maybe
True.
I don't know. I'm just saying if it's a weird thing. If Billy Napier doesn't hire an offensive coordinator, how do you feel about this thing? Or how do you feel about this move? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be a little bit more disappointed in the move. Like to me, it makes more sense if you're bringing in an offensive coordinator and somebody has to go. And if you're Billy Napier, you're never gonna say what you really think. Like, oh, I think it was all Ron Roberts. It wasn't Austin Armstrong. He would never really say that. Um, if it was really Austin Armstrong's defense, then I think Napier would let Ron Roberts go. But apparently Napier feels as though he's benefiting from Ron Roberts being on the staff in some way. Um, and Austin Armstrong doesn't want to be babysat basically by
Mm.
Ron Roberts. And so it's kind of like we still want you on the team, we still want you on the staff, but I brought you in. But if not, then let's get you a landing spot. And apparently this was in the works since mid-November, where
Oh,
Austin Armstrong was kind of like, yeah, I kind of want to go, and now's the time because people are hiring coaches. So there you go.
very interesting stuff there. Anything else you want to add to that before we move on?
Just a couple things on the transfer portal. You know, when you look at the transfer portal now, it's so in healthcare, we have this really nice equation where we talk about like cost or no, it's quality over cost equals value, right? And the same thing about players in the transfer portal. And if you're a coach, you're kind of like, okay, how much quality for the less amount of money that you're asking for is the value you worth to our team? You know, like if you're like a player that played 60 snaps this year and you're asking for $1 million, that's a very, very high cost. How much quality can you bring? And then like they all probably have their own little equation where they're figuring out, okay, this guy's like an 85. Okay, this guy's like a 90. We really need to go after him. Okay, this guy's probably like a 40. So it's kind of like with Jack Pyburn, with his limited snap count, he was able to come in and play at a high energy. Now that you're asking to be the guaranteed starter, which I we could talk about that, as doesn't make any sense. Um, who are you going to be the every down starting linebacker for? Because now you're talking about like, now we saw Travis Hunter, who we both picked to win the Heisman and he ended up winning, plays like 70 snaps a game. You're sitting there playing like 28 and you now want to play even more. But the reality is you are put in those positions by the coaches to be successful in the time that you're in. The other thing is you can't really get these players in the transfer portal, and I think a vast majority of them know this. Um, you can't, like, playing time is not on the table with these coaches. The potential value you can bring to it, the team is. The coaches, it's up to their discretion who goes in the game based on at that moment in time who gives our team the best chance to be successful at that moment. That will always be the coach's decision. The player can't put in a contract. I want to be the every down player, and I. Okay, so you're trash, and then LJ McCray is like beast mode, but we have you in the game because it's in your con. That doesn't make any sense. So they don't even do that in the NFL. These multi-million dollar players don't have it in their contract that I have to be in the game every single play. No, it's the coach's decision. So Pyburns, wherever he goes, unless you're the unequivocal best player on the team and the coach is basically forced to play you, you're not going to be the every down guaranteed playing time unless you go to maybe you go to Houston with Arston Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then at Houston, maybe you're just clearly the better player. So yeah, you're going to be in every game, but he's still not going to say, yeah, I'm definitely going to put you in every time. So that's key. And then the only thing that's guaranteed is the money, aspect of this. So I think when you look at the transfer portal, we've got a really good wide receiver group. Aiden Mizell and Trey Wilson coming back. The only thing about those two guys, if you look at them, they're kind of they need to get their weight up. Like they're always, you breathe on them and they're hurt. So they need to get more physical. Um, and they're going into now. This will be their third year at the college level. You got to get more physical. I don't know if it's like you need bigger quads or bigger arms or whatever it is, but you can't get hit once and now you're out for the year. So you're going to be catching all these balls. You got to look at like LSU when they won the championship in 2019. A part of it was a lot of luck. They were able to get through a whole very difficult schedule without key injuries to key players like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, their two receivers. They made it through the whole year with no injuries. They were very physical, and both of them are doing really well in the NFL with no injuries. They're both very physical. They've got great builds. They can take and absorb hits. So you got to get that. Now, Vernell Brown and Nashawn Montgomery, the two freshman receivers that are going to be coming in, those guys look bigger and stronger than Mizell and Wilson do now. So I expect those two guys to get a lot of playing time with DJ Lagway. And then I think maybe one other transfer portal guy to come in, like a maybe like a sure-handed person. Um, Tank Hawkins is great. I think he can really be a really good like Brandon Powell type player. And then I think we got TJ Abrams is another guy that didn't really play that much this year, but he's also a wide receiver that's pretty good. So we got good players. We probably need one more wide receiver. I would say we probably need one more Louis Vuitton defensive lineman. Okay, drop the bag. Get a defensive lineman in there. Um, and then I think we're good. Then I think we're good. So there you go.
Yeah. No, yeah. I have written down the two things that I think we need is a receiver and another offensive lineman. Like, I don't know who's leaving.
Oh
Is
yeah.
Jake Slaughter coming back? Is Austin Barber coming back? Is, like, Damian George almost left, and I think that's why we dropped. There's a reason why we're not hearing anything about Damian George and that whole situation, because I guarantee we dropped a bag on that guy. Is he the best player? No, but he's a tackle that we need.
Right. And he's experienced.
His experience. You know what I mean? I mean, what is this, his fifth year coming up or something like that? He was at Bama for a bit. But a guy that is very physical, very big body, a guy that has years in this offense.
Yeah.
And here's the toughest thing too about offensive linemen is there's not a lot of them in the portal. There's not a lot of guys in the portal for there. That's probably the smallest group. But there's a couple guys that have jumped out at me. I got 3 of them written down here. North Carolina offensive lineman Howard Sampson. This guy's 6'8". He is an absolute monster. But his grades are actually all better than Austin Barber's and a few other guys that are actually starting for our offensive line. So that's a huge get for us if we can somehow pull him in. Nevada, this is my favorite guy. Nevada offensive tackle, Isaiah World. This guy is another 6'8", big body guy, but his pass blocking grade is an 82, which is very, very high for a tackle. His run block rate is not great. It's down in like the 60s, low 60s, high 50s. But a guy that, I mean, you could figure something out with him. Maybe move him to guard. You know what I mean? Do figure out something what you could do with him. I think would be pretty cool. A guy I really like. Next guy, Tyler Mercer, a center for North Texas. He was an All-American in his conference. I like, that we have a kind of a guard, a tackle, and then a center we can go after. He's probably a guy that's looking for significant playing time, though. He's obviously not going to be center if Jake Slaughter comes back, but a guy that you can kind of probably put at the guard position. Usually centers can play guards. Tackle's a little different, but usually they can play guards. So just 3 guys on the line that I think we need a guy, man, because no telling who's going to leave. And those are really the only 3 big names. That's it for offensive linemen right now in the transfer portal. So, Ohio State, a team that needs offensive linemen out of the portal. So we're fighting with a team like Ohio State. So we'll see. We'll see what we could do there. But I feel like an offensive line is a necessity because we only have young guys coming in behind the guys we already have. So that's an issue. Wide receiver, like you were talking about, I agree. A lot of young, small guys. One guy that I really, really like, there's a couple of them here. But my favorite guy in the transfer portal right now is a Tennessee receiver, Nathan Leacock. This guy's 6'4", 210, runs a 4.4 40. This dude's fast. This dude's lightning fast at a 6'4" frame. A guy for DJ to throw up and for this guy to catch. He'll be one of the tallest receivers that we've had in a minute. He did not do a lot at Tennessee, but Tennessee's receiver core is stacked, and Josh Heupel's offense. A guy that's been in the air raid offense that Josh Heupel obviously trusts. And a big prospect coming out of high school. So still has a lot to prove, but a guy that I like just having a big body out there for us to use if we need to. Been in college football for a few years. North Carolina wide receiver Kobe Paysauer, a guy that didn't get a lot of touches at North Carolina, but did play more than Nathan did at Tennessee. Just a big play guy. Has the ability to make big plays. Doesn't get a lot of touches, but when he does, he makes something with it. There's the North Carolina State receiver that's really big right now that people are wanting to go after. KC is his name, Kevin. Kevin, I don't know. I don't have his last name on the top of my head at the moment. But a guy who we're not even in his top 10. So my question to Napier is, if you want a receiver, what are you doing, bro? Florida State's in his top 10. Why are we not? Very weird. And the last guy I really like is Oklahoma receiver Andrell Anthony, a guy that got playing time but got injured. He's one of the 5 Oklahoma receivers that did get hurt this year, but a guy that is a very reliable receiver, has been with them for a few years. Also a guy that was I think it's him. Let me look it up. But I believe this was a guy who was actually recruited by Billy Napier. Let me see when he was at Louisiana. Oh man, I wish I would have had this pulled up. Let me just look him up real quick. But yeah, those are a few guys that I think are guys that we need to go after,
Yeah.
and would be huge for us. I don't think it's Andrell. Oh man, that is so annoying. One of the guys that I just read out though was recruited and did play at Louisiana for 2 years under Billy Napier. One of those receivers I just stated. So I think that's massive. Hopefully we can pull one of those. God, I don't have it at the moment. That really sucks. I'll find it though. I'll let EJ kind of take over. We did have a couple guys that were interested in us. Keyshawn, I think his name's Silver from Kentucky, interior defensive lineman, like you said, EJ, a guy that a position that we need would be huge. This guy was a former 5-star, and he played really well at Kentucky. So big pickup if we can do him. He visited us like a week ago, so we'll see if we can pull through. And then the quarterback Justin Martin from UCLA, who's actually a pretty good quarterback, visited us as well. So if we can get a good backup for DJ, that would be huge. And he's actually a really, really good, like not insane, but as a backup, a really good backup. And then, of course, we got a commit from punter Tommy Doman from Michigan, a guy who had a great year last year. He was actually up for like the Ray Guy Award last year, and this year he played like garbage. So I don't know what happened. I think there was an injury in the offseason. Something went on. But a guy that did have a really good year last year when they won the national championship and helped lead them to the national championship with his punting. So we'll see what happens here. I think he can definitely have a backup. I think after the injury and offseason, this weird year for him, I think that he just needs a reset. I think this will be a good reset for him. So we'll see what happens. EJ, any thoughts on what I just read out while I try to find who the hell played at Louisiana?
Yeah. I was just thinking the other day, how can we make it more, equitable, not equitable, but uh, what's the word for make it make more sense with the transfer portal?
Yeah.
Because, you got to think about it. Like people are saying, well, the college football playoff is just like the NFL, where, the winners of the conferences are kind of like divisions and you get an automatic bid in. But what we're saying is, well, it's not equitable because the best teams are still SEC, Big Ten. So they shouldn't get it. But if you were to say, well, let's make it equitable, then you can do that through the transfer portal by saying, okay, well, the worst conferences and the worst teams get right of first refusal on whoever goes in the transfer portal. Now, if you start doing something like that, where you start saying, okay, like you've got Eric Singleton, wide receiver, and I think his name is Nick Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
He's a wide receiver at Oklahoma. I think those are the two of the top receivers in the portal that I've been seeing everybody wants. What if it was set up to where, okay, well, the non-playoff teams get first dibs at these people? Hey, that would be great, right? Because at the end of the day, that's how you make it more equitable, is that if players go into the transfer portal, you can't just go to Georgia.
Right.
You can't just go to freaking Oregon, right? Where the rich get richer. Maybe you go to a who's a non-play Florida, or maybe you have to go to a team that finished
Oklahoma.
500,
Yeah.
Oklahoma, right? Well, you gotta stay at Oklahoma because that's where Nick Anderson is.
Right.
I think that could be also a way to kind of deter people from just jumping in the portal every 5 minutes, just to go to the highest bidder. You have a little bit of a process to make it a little bit more equitable. But kind of like what you were saying back at the end of it, we're probably going to get a value wide receiver. We're not going to get one of these big time guys trying to come in making $1 million, right? You're not gonna get a Nick Anderson. You're not gonna get an Eric Singleton. Those players are going to where there's literally no wide receiver on the team, and they're clearly the best wide receiver.
Right.
So we're probably gonna find a guy that's very similar to like a Badger or a DK. Now, both of those guys came right in and started immediately and became like our top two guys, right?
Yeah.
So not saying that you can't do that if you're Nick Anderson. I'm just saying from a value standpoint, with the guys we already have on our team, we're probably not going to be able to pay as much as we're paying the current people. But maybe you can get like, um, you know, I don't know, a Kevin Coleman from Missouri, or who's another John Tay Cook from Texas. Maybe you can get someone like that. But Napier, I think whoever he brings in, I actually have a lot of trust and faith in Napier, especially when it comes to wide receivers and Billy Gonzalez, him and Billy Gonzalez coming out of that portal, because they have always been really, really good. Like Ricky Pearsall, he comes
Right.
in, excellent. Badger, excellent. DK, excellent. So whoever they bring in is going to be good. I'm not really worried about it.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I cannot find who played for Billy Napier. Cool. All right, so that's kind of what's going on there. Any other transfer portal news, EJ? Something that might have jumped out at you, or that you've been seeing?
I just really hope we're able to retain more guys. I think at this point in time, when does the transfer portal close?
I do not know. I know that the well, here's what's weird. From what I've heard, it's like you can enter, what is it, for like a couple weeks after your team's season ends, right? So like, for
Yeah.
example, if you're playing in a bowl game, so like I don't think there really is a window. But yeah, I think the window for teams that their season's technically over, I have no idea. I think it's like a couple weeks, right? Isn't it like 3 weeks?
Okay, so yeah, it opened on Monday the 9th and it closes on December 28th. So players got another 2 weeks to figure out, if they're jumping in or jumping out. They still have the whole thing where if your coach leaves, you still have, um, you know, X amount of time. But if you think about this, or 30 days, if you think about this, just the number of people in the portal. So there are 134 teams in the country, each with 85 scholarship players and another 20 walk-ons. So let's just say 105 players, but let's do 80. Let's just do 90.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 12,000 players. Um, Last year there were 2,800 players that entered the portal. Um, so approximately 23% of the overall players on these rosters, oh, well over 20%, went into the transfer portal, um, which equates to about, on average, um, about 15 players, 10 to 15 players per team. So right now I think we've got 8 players or something like that.
Okay.
So there's another 5, 6, 7, 8. Now obviously it's skewed by teams like Marshall, who basically have like 30, half their team in the portal,
Right.
and then you've got like Mississippi State has like 26 players in the portal. Actually, I think Marshall, they were supposed to play Army, and now they can no longer play that game because they have too many players in the transfer portal, which is, it's crazy, but that's just how it is. So
Right.
I say all that to say, Um, with the transfer portal, we've still got um, a little bit of time to balance who's going to be here on next year's roster versus how many spots that we feel we have. And this is where coaches start to have those difficult decisions with, hey, we're talking to players right now, but we know in our heads we don't have a spot for them unless somebody leaves our team. So then
Mm,
the coach has to go back and say, hey, I think you need to hit the portal, Maine. You need to hit the portal, Maine. No, coach, I want to stay. I really like being a Gator. It ain't gonna work, buddy. And then so we only got 2 more weeks, and then we have to play a bowl game uh before all that, in the middle of all that. So it'll be interesting to see how everything turns out. I really expect us to get a couple of big names. I don't think we've seen anyone except for the punter. Um, we got to land a couple of big names because at the end of the day, we have all that money. We want to make a legitimate run, and the transfer portal gives you an opportunity to put a little icing on the top to be able to get there. And when you look at our schedule next year, and that's probably a segment we can probably talk about too, our schedule was
yep.
released. It's still a very difficult schedule, and to get through that schedule, um, better than where we were this year, which to me, I think you got to be 9-3 next year. I mean, you got to be 2 games better than what you were this year, which honestly, the team could have been 9-3 this year if you don't screw it up against Tennessee and you don't get unlucky with DJ Lagway injury against Georgia. Maybe you can be nine. Maybe we're 9-3 this year. So you can probably get to 9-3. 10-2, that's where it starts to be kind of like the schedule doesn't really set up for that. Um, unless we are just dominating on off, unless we're just coming out there just 2019 LSU, which, hey, maybe we could make that kind of transformation. You never know.
Mm.
But we probably are going to need an offensive coordinator to do that because I'll never forget, they brought in who's the young guy, the offensive coordinator at LSU that 2019 season. Um,
Oh, offensive coordinator Joe Brady.
Joe Brady, right. He was kind of like a one-hit wonder, honestly. He came in, only had one good year as an offense, but the value that he brought was he gave him another element to look at offensively, explosiveness. How can we just and then that's all you really needed. So we just need somebody else to come in and be that guy. I was hoping it was gonna be Scott Frost, but he's back at
Hey,
UCF.
back, which is by the
Uh,
way crazy,
yeah, wild.
crazy. So
Uh,
big pickup for UCF, man. It's gonna be fun to see them. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a very interesting. You were talking about how the roster plays out, and you're right. It's very NFL style. You know what I'm saying? It's getting rid of guys. It's guys entering the free agency. It's just it's so weird, so different, and you have to keep the culture too. You got to keep the culture. You can't be all transfer portals like we've seen with teams like Ole Miss, right? So you got to keep a little bit of that integrity of the school, and balance that with getting good talent. So it's hard to
yep.
do, but you got to be able to master it. So we'll see what Billy Napier does with that. And honestly, we could take a look at the schedule too. Um, we're not going to dive super deep into it because I think this would be a really cool off-season subject and episode to like really dive
Yeah.
deep in. But we can take a look. Let me get this pulled up for you guys. Boom. All right, so it's on screen for you guys right now. We have it's so weird. I've never seen a schedule like games are just misplaced. You got LSU early on. You have Tennessee super late, right before Florida State. It is so weird, man. Yeah, we start out playing a nobody school, LIU, the Sharks. So obviously should be a very easy win. See what happens there. Then we got, South Florida, which can be, a very interesting team. They can get some wins on you. Physical. We have them at home, and then we go to LSU very early on in the season, and then to Miami, which we have no idea what kind of team Miami is going to be next year. So this can be a pretty easy game, or it can be a tough one, depending on who they get at quarterback. Then we play Texas at home. So this is a stretch that is brutal. I mean, you have at LSU, at Miami, Texas at home, at Texas A&M and College Station. You have also a bye week between Miami and Texas, so that is a W. So after after the Miami game, you can chill for a little bit, put your sights on Texas. But then you play Texas, which, by the way, Texas's schedule is so easy. So they have like 3 weeks to prep for us, so that's not good. That's scary. We only have a week to prep for them. Then we go, like I said, at Texas A&M, Mississippi State in the Swamp, which I think Mississippi State next year is going to be a very, I don't want to say sleeper, because I don't think they're going to win the SEC or anything, but I do think that they're going to reach bowl eligibility next year and be a team that's going to be on upset alert quite a bit. And then we play Georgia after a bye week. Then we play at Kentucky. This is the other scary stretch that we have here. We play Georgia, at Kentucky, in cold Lexington, Kentucky, at Ole Miss in Oxford. And then we have Tennessee at home and Florida State at home. So we have these horrific 2 stretches that are just separated by Mississippi State in a bye week. Yeah, scary stuff. EJ, give me your thoughts on the schedule. Tell me how you hate how. What's your thoughts on how inconsistent the scheduling is from the SEC? Because it's insane how some of these schools have the easiest schedules in the world.
Yeah, the schedule,
which will get you into the playoff, by the way. Yeah, I mean, easy schedule, you make it in the playoff now. So
right. The easier your schedule, the easier it is to get into the playoff, and there's just no benefit to playing a tough schedule right now. I mean, if especially when they sent the message that Alabama got left out, which everybody will say, well, Alabama, they shouldn't have lost to Oklahoma. I'm like, okay, Oklahoma people, here's what people don't understand. Oklahoma still, according to 247 Talent Composite, has the 7th best roster in the country. So even though you're playing a team that had lost 5 games, you're playing a team that is still extremely physical, extremely talented, and on any given Saturday, if they play to their full potential, they've got the talent to beat anyone in the country. So it's not like you went out there and lost to Northern Illinois, a team that you completely out-roster. Alabama doesn't out-roster Oklahoma to the extent that they would like a Northern Illinois. So that's number one. Number two, when you look at this schedule for Florida, 8 teams that we play have rosters, according to 247 Sports, and I know there will be some leveling off after the transfer portal and 15 players from every team leaves and everybody's on a different. But anyway, we play 8 teams with a roster that's in the top 20 right now. So you can basically say we play the most talented teams in the country are on our schedule, and 2 of the additional 2, Mississippi State and Kentucky, have rosters that are in the top 35. So we have 10 teams that have really good rosters. 4 of those 10 teams that we play have rosters that are in the top 10 in the country in terms of overall talent on their teams. So when it comes to the physical nature of getting through a schedule like the one that we have, how physical and the toll it's going to take, and then you compare it to the laundry list of injuries that we had this year, it kind of checks out, right? I mean, we're playing the most difficult schedule from a physicality standpoint, and even the teams that have bad records, that's not a great indicator because they still have players that can smack you in the freaking mouth. Mm-hmm. So the other disadvantage of the schedule is the big games. And you already touched on this. Texas, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State. All of those teams have basically a month to prepare for us when you look at their schedule. Like Tennessee. Look at Tennessee. They don't play anyone for 3 weeks before they play us. And the game with them is November 22nd. LSU has USF before they play us. So maybe that's a game that they got to give some thought to. No, that's Miami. Miami has USF before they play us. Texas has three cupcakes. So they play Ohio State to open the year. Then the entire month of September is Sam Houston State, McNeese State, and whoever that. And then they play Florida. Meanwhile, we're playing at LSU, at Miami, and then we have to play Texas.
And then at Texas A&M. It's insane, bro.
Right. So it's like, now we get a bye week before Texas, so maybe that helps us out a little bit. But it's still not really that equitable. And when you look at a schedule like this, it's kind of like, okay, if we were to go 9-3 on this schedule, what does that mean anything? Are we going to get kicked out because the committee says, well, no, we're just not going to allow any 9-3 teams to be in the playoff because you shouldn't have lost to a trash 6-6 team, even though they have a top 10 roster in the country and can smack half the teams that we put into the playoff. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So this is a very difficult schedule to navigate. I do like the way that we've closed this year because this year was very difficult. And the other thing about this schedule is one last thing. And I've talked to you about this before, but I don't know if we've said it on the show, is the odd years are the more difficult years for Florida from a scheduling standpoint, which is one of the reasons I think we've never won a national championship on the odd years because the SEC schedule is not favorable because the game in Jacksonville is considered a home game for you. And so that means in the SEC, you only have three SEC games in the swamp on odd years. And then you have to play 5 games, 4 of them true road games, and 1 of them in Jacksonville. So you only have 3 SEC games in the swamp, and those games are Texas, Mississippi State, and Tennessee. You have to play all the other SEC teams outside of the swamp. On the even years, it's reversed. You only play 3 true road games. You got 4 games in the swamp, and then the neutral game in Jacksonville. So the even years is a more neutral SEC schedule. So that's a challenge for us. The good news is, I think when you look at LSU, when you look at Miami, when you look at Texas A&M, when you look at Georgia, when you look at Mississippi State, when you look at Kentucky, when you look at Ole Miss, all those teams are going to have new quarterbacks. So we're bringing back DJ Lagway, great quarterback. If our defense can be marginally better than what it was toward the end of the year, I think we got a shot. You got to stay healthy, though. You can't have major injuries to guys that are leaders and expect to navigate the schedule. But I think it's a decent schedule. It's a very difficult one. We'll see how it goes. I'm upset we don't play FAMU though. That's my only gripe. I don't know why FAMU couldn't make it work on the first weekend. I gotta call them up and be like, "What the hell wrong with y'all?"
Yeah, now we're playing a shark team. So I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, playing sharks.
Playing the shark, yeah. But yeah, tough schedule. We'll see what happens. You know, like I said, in the off season, we'll obviously be taking a look at this schedule quite a bit, breaking it down, making our predictions, and it'll be pretty exciting. So yeah, there you go. 2025 schedule. Love it. Gotta love it. It's funny when we were literally talking about I think we we were recording the Heisman talk. That's what it was. We were recording the Heisman thing, and um, uh, during it they were doing the schedule release, and we were watching it on our phones. It was really funny. But yeah, fun stuff there. Yeah, insane, insane. All right. So yeah, there is the Gator stuff. I think we kind of hit all the big Florida Gator news for us. So now we're gonna go ahead and dive into the Tulane game. If you're ready, EJ.
Tulane, yes. Let's talk about
Tulane, let's
Tulane.
do it. All right, so the Florida Gators, the 7-5 Florida Gators, are now facing the 9-4 Tulane Green Waves. So we're gonna be playing this team. I think what's the all-time record? Isn't it like we're on them like 9-5 or 9-4 to 1?
Oh yeah, they used to be in the SEC.
Because they used to be in the SEC. Yeah. So yeah, we haven't played them in years. But yeah, we were playing them in the Gasparilla Bowl, Tampa, Florida, at the Raymond James Stadium at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on December 20th, this upcoming Friday. So very excited to see what happens here. Last time we were in the Gasparilla Bowl, we got clapped by UCF, which sucked. We also didn't have a head coach though, so it's okay. We actually have one now. But we don't have an offensive coordinator, but it's all right. So we're playing Tulane. Tulane, funny thing about Tulane is they don't have their top 3 quarterbacks in this game, which is interesting. So on your screen, you can see the roster of the 6 quarterbacks that they have. So Kai Horton, Darian Mensa, and Ty Thompson all have entered their name into the transfer portal, which means we're left with 3 true freshmen, and Kellen Tasby, Jackson Judge, and Dagan Bruno. There's no info on any of these guys. None of them had touched a football at the collegiate level before. One thing about Kellen Tasby is this guy's 6'6". He's a big boy. So that stands out. But other than that, I mean, we don't know anything about this team. So the starter, Darian Menza, went to Duke, I believe, which was a really weird jump from Tulane to Duke. I don't feel like you're making a big upgrade there. I feel like maybe like North Carolina would have been a cool move for him, right? Under Bill Belichick or something. But Duke's a really weird thing for him to do. But yeah, so Tulane, before we start diving into all the stats and the team, EJ, how do you feel about this game? You know, Tulane obviously losing to Army in the AAC championship, but had some good wins. You know, was a playoff team leading up to the end of the season. So how do you feel about Tulane?
So Tulane, so they're saying that Ty Thompson, who's the backup, is in the portal, but he will play in the bowl game.
Oh, so he is playing.
Yeah, so that's the latest according to Twitter. So we expect him to be the starter, which is interesting because he was a highly touted recruit. I think he did he go to Oregon,
Yes.
Oklahoma, somewhere like that. He's a run first quarterback, so it's going to be kind of like Marcel Reed type of situation where, okay, great, now can we tackle this guy? The only difference is you don't have a Marcel Reed offensive line that's running out there blocking everybody in sight. So Ty Thompson's rushing grades on PFF are really, really good. He's got on the year, what's he got? 45 carries, 238 yards. So that's 5.3 yards a carry. But his passing grade on PFF is not really that great. He's in the 50s in his offensive and passer grades on PFF, which is really, really below average. So I really expect Tulane to come out with a offensive attack that's predicated on the run first, and then enabling that to set up a passing game that's short, quick, get the ball out of his hands fast. If that's not there, run for your life. So it might look kind of ugly, um, but that Ron Roberts defense that Logan he doesn't like it, is going to sit back in a very base defense early in the game, and they're going to just say, okay, what is Tulane trying to accomplish on offense? Because we don't have a clue. So we're just going to line up in a nickel base defense and see what they're trying to do. And then I think you'll start to see Florida's defense figure out what Tulane's deficiencies, what they're trying to accomplish, what they can and can't do. You'll see that go on in the game, and then I think the identity of the game will start to take shape. Um, when I look at the stats on this game, okay, so here's a oh well, let me give you this first. The and I know we have the stats for everyone to see our typical comparison. Um, is gonna be the Gator defense is gonna be the difference in this game. Tulane has an extremely efficient offense. Okay, like incredibly efficient. 0.58 points per play, which is crazy. They run 64 plays a game and they're scoring 37 points a game. So that basically means, every 6 plays, they're scoring a field goal on the board, which is high powered. So if you get this team in a situation where you don't score until every 12 plays, now they're kind of panicking. They're like, well, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? So you got to get in there and you got to stop them from scoring. That has been Florida's defensive strength the last month of the season. Teams cannot score. Ever since that Texas game, LSU scored 1 touchdown on us. Ole Miss, as high powered offense as they are statistically, scored 2 touchdowns. 0 in the second half. Florida State, well, they can't score on anybody. They scored 11. So teams are not scoring on us. If Tulane can't score, their entire game plan is completely thrown off. That's going to be the difference in this game. Tulane's ability to run the football, which they actually are running the football pretty decently. The other statistic in the game is the sacks. So Tulane has only surrendered 17 sacks on the year. Florida has surrendered 19 sacks on the year. Florida has sacked teams 38 times. Tulane has sacked people 34 times. So it's that's a dynamic getting pressure on the quarterback that we're going to have to watch. And then lastly, I'll say here's an interesting scoring update just in the last couple of weeks. Well, month. So November 16th. Tulane 35, Navy 0 was the score. Now, Horvath, the quarterback for Navy, got hurt in the second quarter, so maybe that's why they didn't score. Army then goes on to beat Tulane 35-14. So Tulane beat Navy 35-0. Then Army beats Tulane 35-14. Then we just watched a Navy Army game where Navy beats Army 31-13. So it's like the craziest score different. Now I know you're not supposed to do like transitive property, but how the hell are you beating Navy 35-0 and then you lose to? So it doesn't make any sense. But I'll just say this. If Tulane gets pushed around on the line of scrimmage, which they were in the Army game and they were in another game earlier this year, Oklahoma, I don't think they stand a chance because everything that they do is predicated on their ability to create margin in the running game. They can't throw it with Ty Thompson nearly as well as they could with Mensa. So something's got to give. That's the key to the game.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Um, thing about Tulane is yeah, they didn't really play many good teams this year. We look at their strength of
Yeah.
schedule, and all their losses have come to teams like Memphis and teams like you said, Oklahoma, Kansas State, teams that are more talented than them, teams that
Yeah.
are better than them, and they've lost against those teams. So Tulane's a very average team, in my opinion. You put them in the SEC, they're probably 4-8. I think Vanderbilt beats this team, and yeah, defensively, a team that doesn't generate too many turnovers, a team that gives up a lot of turnovers on offense. Like you said, they're very, very high powered on offense. They create explosive plays. You got Mensa back there making big plays. You have their running back for them who is playing in this game, Micah Hughes, a guy that's one of the best running backs in the country, who just is explosive as hell back there and very efficient runner, averaging, I think, 5.5 yards a carry on the season, over 1,300 yards rushing. But they've had trouble with throwing interceptions. They've had trouble with fumbles a lot this season. If you look at all the losses that they have, the 4 losses, they lost the turnover battle. They've had 3 or more turnovers in those games. Usually a pick and a couple of fumbles. And it's not only fumbles by Micah Hughes, it's fumbles by receivers, fumbles by the quarterback. It's insane. So the thing about Tulane is yeah, they get consistent. They get going down the field and they fumble, then throw an interception, which has happened inside their own 20-yard line or in the opponent's 20-yard line multiple times this year. Very reminiscent to us stopping Ole Miss inside of our territory 2 times in the Ole Miss game. So they get going and they just fall apart. They make these mistakes that they can never recover from, and the game gets out of hand. So yeah, a team that can be dangerous, like you were saying, especially with this defense of Ron Roberts, kind of keeping everything in front of them, making them drive the ball down the field. And the good news is this is a team, like I said, that will make mistakes, whether it's fumbling or throwing interception. So let me go and flip this for you. So with Tulane, like I said, consists of at least 2 or 3 turnovers a game, loses the turnover battle in all their games. Here's what it was. The receiver that Billy Napier recruited is on this team, is Dante Fleming. So it wasn't the receivers in the transfer portal. It's the guy that's actually playing in this game, one of the lead receivers for Tulane, a guy that can make big plays, was recruited by Billy Napier, played at Louisiana for 2 or 3 years, and is now at Tulane. So that's going to be a fun kind of, reunion there. One thing that's really weird when you look at this offense and their or really just the whole offense and defense, their PFF grades are really consistent. You know what I mean? There's really not like one statistic you look at and you go, "Ooh, they suck there." No, it's they have some games where there's some red in some of them, but they're pretty consistent with how they play. It's really the turnovers that I'm saying that's getting them. And all the games that they won, they didn't have a lot of turnovers in. They played clean football. Penalties, another thing. They were having a crap ton of penalties in the games that they lost. That's another issue. The worst PFF grade I would say is the coverage on the back end. When they've played teams better than them, like Kansas State that loves to throw the ball when Avery Johnson's on it. Teams like Oklahoma that can kind of throw the ball down the field, even though they didn't have 5 receivers. At that time, I think they only had 2 or 3 out because it was early on in the season. But if you could throw the ball on Tulane, their defense is not good. So good news is we have a quarterback that loves to throw the football down the field, and I think we can make explosive plays there and not have any problem with that at all. So that's something to look at. Like I said, Micah Hughes, a guy that is one of the best running backs in the country. A guy that loves to run to the left side of the line. He really favors that left side. Over there, he's averaging about 5.5 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns, and he has 10 rushes for over 10 yards out there with a long of 51 and 6 rushing touchdowns. So he really likes that left side to run to, um, and he's gonna gain yards. Even in all their losses, he's averaging like 4 or 5 yards a carry. So they're gonna feed this man like Boise State feeds Ashton Jeanty. All right, so be ready for that. Um, One thing about their defense is they have a really good linebacker group. They've been consistent all year, getting a lot of tackles, getting interceptions. One thing I am worried about this game is they do, because of the how well their linebackers have been playing with creating turnovers and being kind of flying all over the field. DJ Lagway has struggled with throwing passes over the middle. That is something I'm worried about because these linebackers do play like DBs at times. So I'm really interested to see DJ Lagway against this linebacker group for Tulane. And Robinson is their best cornerback. This guy's actually a very good corner. If you look at his PFF grades, it's great. Really good cover corner. Also, this defense plays really good against the run. If you look at their safeties, they got a lot of a lot of these safeties come up and they fly to the ball. So something to look at there. But I don't see I don't like when you really, there's not like a horrible matchup with us against them. Only thing I'm worried about, like you said, is the fact that Ty Thompson's playing a guy that can run the ball and can be very balanced with it. I am a little worried about that. But we have so much more talent than them. We've played way harder teams than them. And they have a lot of opt-outs going on right now, all over the place. So this shouldn't be an issue, I don't think, going forward. My offensive keys, let DJ throw the ball. Even though, he's over the middle, can be a little sketch, and they have good linebackers and a pretty good secondary, let him throw the ball. And I want at least 200 yards passing this game, please, which we'll probably see on just 8 completions, but that's okay. And then defensive keys, get 2 turnovers. If you win the turnover battle, you're winning this football game. That's been something that's consistent with this Tulane team the whole season, and what we need here going forward. So that's kind of my breakdown for this game. We'll see what happens. I'm not excited to watch this game. I could see it being close when it's not supposed to be close. You know what I mean? Maybe a turnover here or there. Maybe Tulane get lucky and they finish drives on us, right? But at the end of the day, I see us. We're favored by 13.5. I see us covering that.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of like really assess these teams statistically when one has played the 5th strength of schedule in the country and Tulane has played the 95th strength of schedule in the country. So, and that's with their starting quarterback.
Right.
Now the turnovers in these stats here that they pulled, to your point, in the games they lost turnover margin, but it just goes to show how much better in the games they won they were with turnovers because they're +8 on the season. Florida's +5 on the season, which is great. There's a positive correlation between teams who have winning records and whether or not they're positive in the turnover margin on the season. So we finally were positive on the turnover margin this year. And lo and behold, we have a winning record for the first time since 2020. I want to say
That's
we're
insane.
we're guaranteed a winning record for the first time since
That's
2020.
crazy.
That's the value of turnovers. We finally have a defense that's forcing turnovers. I think that's the key in this game is going to be turnovers. I could definitely see in this game, but to your point, Micah, who's their running back?
Micah Hughes.
Micah Hughes. They're saying he has 0 fumbles on the season. Like he does not fumble the ball, but neither does Jaden Baugh. So there you go. I can expect the game plan to go a little bit like this. I think Florida is going to run to set up the pass. The top run defenders on the Tulane defense, 4 of their top run defenders are in the secondary. They're safeties and corners. In terms of tackling running backs, 4 of their leading tacklers are in the secondary. Now that's a function of how they play defense. They play like a nickel and a dime style defense. When you're playing in the American, you can't really recruit great offensive linemen, so you have to have a shotgun 5 wide, offense to move the ball. Um, the question is that going to work in this game? How aggressive is Florida's defense going to be? Are we going to be 10 yards back and let them hit these dink and dunk passes over the middle? Or are we going to say, you know what? Let's play a little bump and run. Let's see if they can complete these passes mano y mano here. Um, and then just maybe play a two deep safety with everybody else within, a few yards on the line of scrimmage. Um, I definitely think spying Ty Thompson is going to be very, very key in this game, getting them behind the sticks and then defending screen passes. That's it. I don't really see Tulane doing much more than that. And then I think Jaden Baugh, getting him in the game, running the football. We're gonna obviously gonna have Montrell Johnson and Jacoby Jackson running the football as well. If they can hit their season average in rushing, um, I just don't see how this game is gonna be close, because even at our core, our defense does not allow scoring. And so in the last month, we don't allow teams to score that many points. So the question is, can we stop their run and force Ty Thompson to actually have to throw the ball? If he does that, is he going to be doing it under duress and into the teeth of the Gator defense? If that's the case, I don't even think we need 200 yards, because we're going to be at midfield every possession, just running it straight to the end zone. So I just find it very difficult for Tulane to muster a lot of offense and enough points in this game to end up on top. Um, and so that's why I got to go with Florida in this one. It just doesn't seem like that even of a matchup when you consider all things considered. But you never know. Like you said, will we drop a snap and it goes back 50 yards and Tulane scores? Will we, is DJ Lagway going to come off a little bit rusty and throw a ball that bounces off DK's hands up in the air? Tulane catches it. Like, if stuff like that starts happening, yeah, they've got a chance to win. But if we just put our heads down, do not fumble, power run right up the middle, then Tulane's like, oh crap, we got to start defending this run. Play action, deep bomb, it's game over. You can't do things that are unconventional in a game like this, because it is more high risk, and you keep a team that you should be plowing over in the game. This is a game where you got to kind of like grind them to death. Um, which I think is probably what Billy Napier is going to do. And hopefully you get to see, um, a lot of different players in this game playing. Um, so there you go.
Yeah, I think defensively, I'm excited to see maybe Aaron Childs in there more, Miles Graham,
Yeah.
these young guys that, which by the way, Miles Graham,
Miles
Jaden
Graham.
Ball making the freshman All-American team for the SEC, which is
He
awesome.
deserves it. He
Oh,
is incredible.
amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, to see some young guys back there, see what they do. And this is, like you said, this is Billy Napier's type of game. He loves this. When his team's more physical than the other team, he eats that up, baby. He loves it. And like you said, he can just run. Let DJ throw a little bit. Run. That's what he's gonna do.
But Logan, we don't want another 22-7 Charlotte. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because if it ends up looking like that Charlotte game, I'm turning off I'm gonna come in there with a pirate outfit on and be pissed. Where's
Dude,
I'm gonna be? Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's why that's a reason why I'm still not sold on his offense, and why I think we need to get an OC, in my opinion. But I think Lagway's good enough though to really create a gap, I think, in the score. And like I said, don't be surprised if it's 21-13 at halftime. Like, honestly, I that would not surprise me at all, right? And it's that kind of weird grindy game. It's like, how is this score, even though we're playing way better, how is the score this? Like maybe they had a turnover. We're like, what's going on? We have double the yards as them, double the time possession. What's going on? I can see that happening, and then we kind of pull away in the second half. That's but we'll see. This is Billy Napier's type of game. He hasn't had many blowouts in his career. We talked about that. When's the last time you can point toward a blowout? I mean, Samford, but that was 14-0 at halftime.
That wasn't even a blow. That was just like you just let the game go, and it ends
Right.
up being the score. It's not even like you really tried to get a blowout.
Right. So like what? So what do you seriously, EJ? When's the last time we blown out a team?
Well, I think if you count the Kentucky game,
Yeah.
maybe that's a blowout.
Yeah. No, I would count that too. I would count that too.
Like,
But
what's a blowout? Is a blowout 4 touchdowns or 3? I would say it's 3, at
I'd
least
say
3.
it's 3. So Kentucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
We can say
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
But
But
Kentucky fell off a map after that game.
dude, they're not even existent anymore.
Right.
Not even existent. So yeah. And by the way, that's the best game I would say we played one of the best games we played all year. Even counting LSU and Ole Miss, like defense was getting turnovers, stepping up, offense was going crazy. That was dude. The energy that night in Swamp was amazing. So yeah, I don't know. I feel weird. My score, when I say it, it's a blowout score. And it feels weird because I'm like, Napier hasn't shown me that he can do that. So listen, the momentum he needs going into this next year is a blowout win. This is what he needs. He needs Lagway to go off. He needs Jaden Ball to be a man back there, bro, and carry 4 guys on his back going into the end zone. He needs DK and Badger and all these guys. He needs guys to get turnovers. Like he needs a staple game to finish the season with 8 wins, which is what I was really hoping for. Beginning of the season, I predicted this was 7 wins at the end of the year, and 8 wins I said was a great season. 9 is the ceiling. And 8 wins is right in the middle. It's exactly what I want. He can do a great job finishing that. But I'm going to tell you right now, like EJ said, if this is a 21-20 victory or 21-10 victory, no one's going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy. No one else will be. And that energy going into next year is not going to be where you want it to be. And you're lucky that the people that are going to be excited is because it's for your players that you've brought in, like DJ Lagway. But that's my thought on it. We can go ahead and give our scores if you're ready. If you don't have anything else to add, EJ.
Nothing else to add. Hopefully it'll be a packed stadium, and everyone will be booing Tulane.
Hopefully, we'll see. My final score prediction is 38-13 Florida. I think Tulane will score a little bit. Like I said, I think it's going to be close at halftime. I really do. I think the Gators come back out, go off. I think the physicality of us is going to get to Tulane, like you said, running the football, hitting them over top. We'll see. But I have Florida winning 38-13.
Wow, that's crazy because my score is 37-13.
That's crazy. There you go.
I think it'll be like a wild, funky, like we sack them in the end zone and it's a safety and we get 2 points. Now, I could say 40-13 because I do think Trey Smack, we're going to screw something up and have to kick a 59-yard field goal. So that's almost guaranteed.
Have a couple holds.
Right. We're right. It's gonna be 2nd and 1 from their 18. And we're gonna go from what should have been a touchdown to now a 59-yard field goal attempt. So that's almost guaranteed to happen in this game. So now that I say that, let me go 30. Let me keep it 37. Let me keep it 37. I'll keep it 37-13. I don't see Tulane being able to score by just running a conventional offense off of a Florida kickoff deep in their territory. I don't see them consistently driving the field. They've got to score off of a short field, a turnover, you get a strip, scoop, and score, you get a deflected ball, and will it be a it rains, it pours type of game? DJ has shown me, though, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but when he has turned the ball over, he quickly goes into this mode of ultra conservatism, but it ends up working out for the team because we don't turn it over anymore. Like we threw that pick six against Kentucky. Ever since that play, for the rest of the game, it's pound them and throw safe passes. We threw an interception against. Did we throw an interception against Ole Miss? I think we threw an interception against Ole Miss. It was like a deflected pass over the middle. But ever
Yes,
since
yes, we did.
then, okay, yeah, we threw it intercept. But ever since that play, there were never any passes over the middle like that were too high or too low or whatever. We just ran it down their throats. So even if we turn the ball over, I don't really see us. It rains, it pours from a turnover standpoint. And Jaden Ball and Montrell Johnson have been so elite at not fumbling the ball. I think Montrell Johnson has one fumble on the year. It was in the Tennessee game. Uh, Jaden Ball, I don't think has any fumbles on the year, which is insane. And Jacoby Jackson, or is Jacoby Jackson the one that had the fumble? He's got a couple of fumbles on the year too. But for the most part, the running backs have just not, they've not fumbled the ball at all.
They've been amazing all around. It's insane.
They've been incredible. So Jaluk, he needs to win a freaking award. But I think 37-13, I if we can get 40 in this game, I'd be like, yeah, we 2025 look out. But y'all know that's not going to happen. We're going to end up with four 58-yard field goals. Jay Smack's got to get to the NFL. So that's how it's going to happen.
I respect it. I will say this, EJ, like you were talking about, they won't be able to drive down the field. I do think that we will have a turnover, whether it's fumble, whether it's an interception. But if you look at the past, however many games that DJ Lagway in, there's usually at least one turnover. So I do expect one. And I think that's what's going to keep it close in that first half. And then, I think the second half we go crazy.
Yeah. Smoke them.
Oh, for sure. So we'll see. We'll see. Billy Napier, you got to do something here, man, to set the tone for this next season. But yeah, that's our Tulane prep. We'll see what happens. Very excited. It's gonna be a fun game, and we'll both will be watching that. Welcome to the bowl picks, man. We have a couple bowl games plus the first round of the college football playoffs that we're gonna dive into. So that's gonna be super fun. And my camera's already messing up. Dang it, bro. Okay, we're back. Look at that. All right. So we're going to go through every single one of these. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 regular bowls, and then the first round of playoffs. So, by the way, me and EJ did the Bowl Mania, and we're 2-0 so far. Jackson State gets the win 28-7. And the Cricket I love the names. The Cricket Celebration Bowl over South Carolina State. And the IS4S Salute to Veterans Bowl. South Alabama beats Western Michigan 30-23, which, by the way, was a great game. I was at the Universal City Walk last night watching it, dude. It was back and forth. South Alabama finally pulls ahead. It was amazing. It was beautiful. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So, first one, Tuesday in 2 days on the 17th, Memphis. Number 25 Memphis faces West Virginia and in the Scooters Coffee Frisco Bowl. Memphis favored by 5.5. Who do you have winning here, EJ?
Oh man. All right. So Memphis is favored by 5.5. So this is one of those games where it's kind of like, is everybody gonna be playing? Because it used to be the smaller teams, everybody played, but now when the smaller teams, um, less talented teams go to bowl games, um, their best players enter the portal because they want to upgrade, right? Um, and so it's kind of difficult to kind of know. I think Memphis right now has a little bit more of an explosive offense than West Virginia. So I'm going to go ahead and pick them to win this game. But again, it's going to be very close. I would not be surprised if West Virginia won this game, but I'm going to go Memphis.
Yeah, I picked Memphis. I don't like Memphis as a football team. I think they're pretty bad. You look at their wins this year, like you were talking about, EJ, not great. And they've taken some bad losses. They just got super easy schedule. Um, West Virginia. The only reason I don't pick West Virginia is they don't have a head coach. Neil Brown's gone. They don't
Oh,
have a head
okay,
coach,
yeah.
so that's why I'm picking Memphis here. But I do think West Virginia is the better team. But because they don't have a head coach, which, as we know, is a pretty big impact on these bowl games, I'm going to pick Memphis, but I don't feel comfortable. I think they cover as well. So we are on the same page there. Hold on, let me get my pen so I can mark it. So, yeah, we both got Memphis. There we go. Next game, we have Western Kentucky versus James Madison in
Ooh.
the Boca Raton Bowl. And Western Kentucky, or sorry, James Madison is favored by 7.5. Gonna be a fun game. EJ, how do you feel?
Oh, the numbers are unkind to Western Kentucky in this one. Um, James Madison just looks like now both teams are coming off losses here. Uh, Western Kentucky had to play Jacksonville State 2 times in a row, which that's wild. Um, Technically, I guess it could happen for us. Well, not really, because if the last game of the season is Florida State, we couldn't play the SEC championship game, but technically it could be Alabama Auburn could play 2 times in a row, technically, if that ever panned out, which would be so stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Or Michigan, Ohio State back to back. That would be fun to watch. Um, I'm gonna go James Madison. Oh man, I don't know. Do they have any players out?
I not
West
not from what I've seen.
Western Kentucky just fell off a map and had such a terrible game against Jacksonville State. I think I was at the gym watching this game. They were just getting pummeled. So I was just like, okay, James Madison's a little bit better than that. So I'm gonna go James Madison.
Yeah, James Madison is probably one of the most inconsistent football teams I've ever seen. They've had really good games, and then they've lost to some really bad teams. The Marshall loss, I'm not worried about because Marshall's actually a good football team. That whole situation with their head coach is so weird. Have you read about that?
Uh, their head coach?
Yeah, Marshall's head coach.
Yeah.
So weird.
Wow.
So because they didn't want to renew him, he leaves. Even though he brought him to what they weren't they like 9-3, 10-2 this year. They were a great football team. And he really rebuilt them. And because they didn't want to renew. It was just an absolute joke. Anyways, so that's not a bad loss.
Yeah.
They almost won against Marshall there, which would have been a great win. They have some good wins, but they also then lost against teams like App State, teams like Georgia Southern, Louisiana Monroe's a terrible loss. But like you said, because Western Kentucky really fell off, I agree. I like James Madison. They're favored by 7.5. I could see them only winning by a touchdown. I'm gonna go James Madison though. I'll go James Madison as well.
Yeah, I'll go Maddie
I don't feel
to
super
cover.
confident. I think they'll win, but I don't know about cover. Um, Next one we have California favored by 1.5 against UNLV
The
in
Fighting
the
Dan Mullins.
yeah, there you go. In the Art of Sport LA Bowl. What a name. Um,
Love it.
6-6 versus 10-3. EJ, how do you feel?
Give me UNLV to cover in this one to win outright. Um, you know, After we were crying that Cal or SMU shouldn't have been in the playoff, um, they did beat Cal 38-6 in the last regular season game. And then UNLV started to get hammered by Boise, but toward the latter part of their game, it was a little bit more physical. I just don't think Cal has enough. Well, actually, Cal does have a relatively good defense compared to what UNLV has faced this year. Um, but for some reason, I'm feeling UNLV in this game. I think the players know that, hey, Dan Mullins is coming. I need to play my ass off to prove myself.
Yep.
UNLV, Vegas, baby. I
There you
stay at
go.
the Cosmo. I like staying at the Cosmo.
Love it. Yeah, I mean that's a great pick. I agree. I think they cover. I think they win. Um, Cal doesn't have Francisco Mendoza, I think is his name. Their quarterback into the transfer portal, which he's like the guy that really carried that Cal team, especially in that
Oh
Miami
yeah.
game. Um, so he's the heart of that football team. They don't have that anymore, even though UNLV doesn't have a head coach. Because I'm assuming Dan Mullen won't start right now. Obviously, you know it's going to be two broken teams. But yeah, I have UNLV winning just because Cal's falling apart without their quarterback. Next game, the game that I feel the worst about picking: Georgia Southern versus Sam Houston. In the R plus L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Georgia Southern's favored by 6.5. But God, when you look at both teams, they're so even. Easy schedules, weird losses, weird wins. EJ, how do you feel? Who do you got?
For sure. Um, Sam Houston wins with defense. Georgia Southern, they're a little bit more of a balanced team, scoring and defense. Um, I'm going to go Georgia Southern in this game to win. Um, but to cover is the thing. Because at the end of the day, Sam Houston does they do not let you score. And I didn't see if any of their players are in the portal or not on the defense. But I'm gonna go Georgia Southern to win outright. Give me Sam. Ugh. Is it 6? What's the spread in this one?
6.5.
Okay, no, Sam Houston. Sam Houston to cover. Georgia Southern, you're not scoring that many. You might not even get 7. Sam Houston to cover. Georgia Southern to win outright. This game is going to be 7-3. Okay. I don't
Yeah,
think- I
I,
don't
I
think-
I could see it. I could see it, bro. I mean, look at Sam Houston's games that they've played. There's like 6-9 in there. Like it's weird, bro. There's some really low scoring games because Sam Houston does not have an offense to save their life, and they somehow are 9-3. If they had a high powered offense, Sam Houston would be a scary little football team, but they're not. I'm gonna pick Georgia Southern to win though and cover. Um, the reason being they got to win over a good Marshall team, and they've been consistently putting up points all year. I know they haven't played a defense like Sam Houston, but I like this Georgia Southern team. They've won some good games, so I'm gonna have them winning and covering. So we'll see, man. I don't feel comfortable though. I could see Sam Houston winning this outright too. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
that's the one pick I'm worried about when it comes to the Bowl Mania picks. Gonna be interesting. The last game, the last normal bowl game, Ohio versus Jacksonville State, and the Staff DNA Cure Bowl. Uh,
Ooh.
Ohio favored by 3.5, which is a great line. How do you feel, EJ?
So, Ohio, okay. Um, they're coming into this game on a 6-game winning streak. I think they won their conference, didn't they?
Yes, I believe so.
Missouri Valley, whatever
Yep.
conference they're in. Uh, Ohio, really good team, scoring a lot of points, not letting other people score. Jacksonville State. Here's a trivia question for everybody on. What state is Jacksonville State in? Does anybody know?
I wait. Let me guess. Jacksonville State is definitely Alabama, right?
Okay,
Okay,
yeah, it's
okay,
Alabama.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Alabama. Like some people be like, Florida?
It makes it like it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird. But so here's the thing. Ohio is pretty much a heavy favorite in this one. I mean, they're 3.5 point favorites, but all the power polls like them to win. I'm gonna go Jacksonville State in an upset over Ohio. Um, I just think the Gamecocks from Jacksonville State are gonna put it on them. Give me the Jacksonville State Gamecocks winning against Ohio.
There you go. Cox get it done. Yeah, look, when it comes to, do you know if Parker Navarro is playing in this game, the Ohio quarterback? I
Uh,
have no idea. I know he's a senior. I don't know. He's the guy that went off in that conference championship game, and I mean 20 for 27, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. Um, Great mustache. The power of the stash. Can he get it done? I don't know. I'm looking at this from the fact that he is playing. I got to do some. Let me do some. I don't know. I feel like he would have popped up though, and you would have seen
yeah.
something about him transferring because I looked up his name, and it doesn't say. I don't know. I think he's playing. Because of that, I have Ohio winning. I have Ohio covering. I really like Navarro as a QB. He's had some turnover issues this season, but if he's on his game, it's his last game as a Bobcat. Because of that, I think Ohio wins and covers.
Okay, now wait a minute. I might need to change my pick here because completely forgot that Rich Rod is going back to West Virginia. Uh so they don't have Rich Rod anymore.
Nope.
Dang. Yeah, I might have to change my pick, y'all. I might have to change my pick, y'all. Rich Rod. What's with all these coaches going back to their UCF, getting their old coach, Rich Rod, going back to West Virginia?
Weird.
Like we didn't get Dan Mullen.
Facts.
So yeah. Okay. So I gotta switch to Ohio. Sorry guys, but sorry I had to switch it up on y'all like that. But I gotta have Ohio winning this one. But hey, that was the only variable because I think Jacksonville State statistically they can beat Ohio.
Yeah.
But Rich Rod was calling the plays. They're gonna look clueless in this game. Ohio Bobcats.
Good pick. Good pick. And we're here. The college football playoffs. Something that people have been excited about. Some things that people have been not so excited about. Started off Friday night after the Gator game. Number 10, Indiana, facing number 7, Notre Dame. In South Bend. Touchdown Jesus overseeing the Fighting Irish in this game. Notre Dame favored by 7.5. EJ, let's hear it. It's a big pick. This can screw up your whole bracket. It's scary.
Let me tell y'all something. Here's the bottom line, everybody, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Um, there's gonna be an unexpected upset in one of these 4 games, and then the other 3 are gonna go exactly according to plan. The question of the day, which one of these games are gonna be an upset? Indiana, people are crying that they haven't played anyone all year. No one seems to mention that against Notre Dame. Okay, they're both 11-1. Now, the difference in this game, I think, is going to come down to a couple things. Can Notre Dame stop Indiana from scoring? Because when Indiana scores a lot of points, it's a freight train, baby. You can't figure them out. They continue to score on you, and then you got your tail between your legs trying to catch up. The first quarter of the game is going to tell us everything we need to know. Quarter 1. People are going to be like, well, it's Ellington. That's just 1 quarter. How do you know how the game's going to go? The reality is the first quarter tells you how the game ultimately is going to end up. Is it going to be Notre Dame just being able to exert themselves? Or is it Notre Dame now in a position where they have to catch up, where they have to change their game plan? Because of that, I'm going to go Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let me see. What was the spread on this game?
7.5 Notre Dame.
Oh, I hate that spread. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. Give me Notre Dame to cover in the game because I think at the end of the day, and Indiana's defense, listen, people talk about they scored a lot of the points. Indiana's defense stops people largely because their offense scores and they get you out of your game plan, and then now all of a sudden you can't do anything. I don't think they're going to be able to do that to Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame might go down 7-0, and then everybody's like, oh, Indiana's back. Then Notre Dame's going to say, oh, they're back, huh? Pound them. Game over. Notre Dame wins it. I can see a score 31-18. Notre Dame wins it.
There you go. We were talking about this before. Well, days before this, and when we first hopped on, we were talking about the picks a little bit. I think that this has the highest chance for an upset out of any of the playoff games. I really do. I think, at least for the first round. I don't feel comfortable. I don't like it. I was telling EJ, I'm like, bro, our data is so limited. You know, we've only seen Indiana play one great football team, and they get beat pretty bad by Ohio State. Could not get it. Their first drive was a touchdown. They were all hype. Literally did not score a point the rest of the football game.
Yep.
But God, they play every other team and destroy them, except for Michigan. But every other team destroy them, and consistently. And not even great football teams can do that sometimes. So you have to look at it and go, that's impressive. That's very impressive. And like you said, their defense can step up. Notre Dame doesn't have the best resume either, right? They don't. I mean, look at their schedule. They don't have the best resume in the world. They have been playing very good as of recent. And their USC win is what really intrigues me. Going to the Coliseum and getting that win. I have Notre Dame winning. I have them covering. But I could see this game being like a 35-28 Notre Dame. And I think it taking place in South Bend is the difference maker. Because if they need to play catch up, they can. Right? Riley Leonard needs to have a great game. It's going to come down to Riley Leonard and his play style. So I got Notre Dame as well there. I think they cover. Next game. SM. Now we're going to Saturday games, right? The Saturday slate starting at noon, which is so weird to have a poor Penn State, dude. They can never get a night game. S at number 11, SMU goes to number 6, Penn State at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gonna be crazy. Gonna be a playoff game in State College, one of the best environments in college football. I think Penn State's favored by 8.5. EJ, how do you feel?
Let me look at. Oh wait, what was the spread again?
8.5. Penn State.
Okay, 8.5. Okay, I think that's a really good spread. Now Notre Dame, when they lose these games, people are like, "Well, they suck. They can't beat anyone good." Okay, no, Penn State. James Franklin. Sorry, I'm still on Notre Dame. James Franklin is criticized because they can't ever beat anybody who's ranked ahead of them, right? Panned out again this year. The interesting thing about SMU. Wait, who's their head coach again? He was like an OC somewhere.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Chad something.
Let me look him up. I could see it.
Young guy, really smart, offensive innovation.
Rhett
all that.
Lashley.
Brett Lashley. There you go. Here's an interesting thing, my friends. Penn State, 53 blue chip players on their roster. SMU, 25. So Penn State, you got double the talent. Okay? This can't be a game that James Franklin loses and people are still confident in the future of Penn State football. Okay? You were gifted this game and you were gifted an easy path because of how jacked up the seedings are. Because of that, Happy Valley whiteout. Penn State covers.
I agree. Dude, I mean, if Penn State loses this game at State College round one of the playoffs to a SMU team they're way more superior than, that'd be insane. Because here's the thing about James Franklin at Penn State and James Franklin in general is he always, when he loses to teams that are more talented than him. He loses to teams that are better. But when he's more talented than them, he's close to undefeated, right? This game, I think Penn State covers. I think they cover by a lot. I could see this game being very close early on, but bro, you're in State College. It's cold as hell. These guys are from Texas, all right, and that's going to be a significant factor. This is one, dude. People have been. I don't know if you saw when Penn State got into the playoff. I don't know if you saw like the fans that were lining up for tickets days before, and it was like the Texas and Texas A&M game. It was insane. Penn State's hype. State College is going to be crazy. Going to be one of the best environments on Saturday, and it's a noon game. Penn State wins, they cover. I think SMU keeps it close early on, but Kevin Jennings isn't ready for this environment. He's not ready for this stage. Penn State wins and wins by a lot. Next game we got Clemson versus Texas. Texas favored by 11 and a half. Number 12 Clemson versus number 5 Texas. This game starts at 4 p.m. What do you think about this, EJ? 11 and a half Texas is favored.
The line. Let me tell you something about the line. It makes sense. When it comes to talent, these teams are very even. 61 blue chips for Texas, 52 for Clemson. It is pretty interesting how quickly Texas has like overcome Clemson in that, because I remember Clemson like 2018, 2017, they were the hot team of the nation, very talented.
Yeah.
Them and Bama. Now, even across the boards, Texas is trying to push out Quinn Ewers. Crazy. I was looking at some stats though, and people were like, well, Quinn Ewers can't do this, he can't do that. The average interception rate is somewhere around 1 out of every 23 passes or something like that. And I think Quinn Ewers is below that. He's like 1 out of every 26 passes. But because they throw the ball 50 times a game, you're going to throw 2 picks. Okay? Stop throwing it. Run it. They don't run the ball enough. Pound them. And when they don't pound them, what happens? What happens? Interception, just like Ole Miss. When they lost Quinshon Judkins, they stopped running the ball as much as they used to. They used to be a run-dominant team. And then they don't throw it as much. But now that you throw it all the time, you're going to throw interceptions. That's just the statistics. 1 out of every 25 passes is going to get picked off. That's the only way this game stays close. Because you can have Quinn Ewers back there. You can have whoever back there. I think Texas is going to be way too high-powered for Clemson in this game. Now, on the other hand, Dabo Swinney, he's been in these games. He knows what the playoffs are all about. He knows what it takes. I'm going to take Texas in the game to cover. I think they'll win exactly at the margin. I'm talking 33-20 final score. Wait, is that what's the spread?
Spread's 11 and a half.
Okay, 32-20. Okay. It's going to be like Vegas knows exactly what they're talking about. And Clemson's defense is good if the other team's offense doesn't move the ball into good territory. When the other team is able to change field position and force
Klubnik.
Klubnik to have to go the distance of the field, that's when Clemson starts to fall apart, man. They can't do that. South Carolina, you couldn't even move the ball in South Carolina. You're not going to move it on Texas. Hook them.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I don't see this game being close. I mean, obviously, Texas is favored by 11.5. I think there's a reason why it's the highest spread out of any of the games. This is just such a mismatch for Clemson, I think. I think Texas is the more physical team. I think especially up front with their front seven. I think Clemson is going to try to run the ball with Maffa. Maffa has not been good as recent. They had the one thing with Clemson is they have not been able to find explosiveness in their offense, which is so weird because who their offensive coordinator was, a guy that people wanted because of how explosive his offenses were at TCU. And he has not been able to get anything going at Clemson for the past couple years, especially this year. Even with some young wide receivers on the outside, there hasn't been that guy for them on the outside. Past couple games, they've gotten more explosive. Why? Because their run game has gotten worse. Maffa starting out the season was averaging like 110 yards a game. It was insane. Dude, he got me money on Prize Picks. It was great. He's been doing absolute trash these past couple weeks. Barely getting 60 yards, barely getting 7. It's weird.
Yeah.
And they've had to
just
turn
abandon the run.
Yeah. Yep. And it's really weird to see. I do think Clemson, like you said, because they've been in a situation, can keep this game close a little bit early. But you're in Austin, Texas. Texas wants a win, man. You know, the end of the game, it'll start getting dark. The people will start getting more drunk. It's gonna be rowdy. A lot of cowboy hats will be in town. So I think the crowd's going to be a big significant factor. The thing with Quinn Ewers is I'm not a Quinn Ewers fan. I don't think he's going to do much in the NFL. He's too inconsistent for me. He'll have great games and have bad games. His great games is when he's able to rely on the run a little bit to open up the field and find those holes in the defense. Texas has not been able to run the ball. And EJ, you're talking about how they need to run the ball more, but the problem is even when they run the ball, nothing's happening. You know, it's like early on in the season, they had like 2 running backs go out in fall camp. And they're like, oh God, we're on our 3rd and 4th guy. And they have done amazing throughout this year. But then they play these more physical teams than them, right? Like Georgia, right? And they have since then not been able, like Texas A&M, right? Not being able to run the ball consistent with Wisner and all those guys in the backfield. And when you look at Texas, they played a pretty easy schedule this year, and I think that's why they were able to run the ball a lot sometimes is because of the talent, lined up across from them. If Arch Manning was a starting quarterback for this Texas team, I think Texas makes it to the national championship. But when you have Quinn Ewers, a guy who's inconsistent and also is like a statue in the pocket and does not have good pocket presence, when you play a defense that's going to get pressure on you, it's going to be an issue. And here's the thing. Clemson can get pressure with their front seven. Their defensive line's been known to be consistent even through the rough years they've had since the national title years. I can see them getting pressure on Quinn Ewers and the game kind of going to crap. I trust that in that situation, Sarkisian will put in Arch Manning because the crowd will be probably cheering Arch Manning's name. I can see that happening, and I think Texas comes back late to cover the spread. But like you said, I think it's going to be a little bit close if Clemson can get pressure on Quinn Ewers. So I got Texas winning and covering as well. Next game we got, the final game of the night. This is such a weird, these matchups are just so interesting. Tennessee Volunteers, how the hell did they make the playoff? Number 9 Tennessee goes into number 8 Columbus, Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State favored by 7.5. How do you feel about this one, man? This is so weird seeing Tennessee in the playoff, EJ.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's talk about it for a second. And a lot of people have not even bothered. I feel like we're the only ones that have even bothered to call to question Tennessee being in the playoff. Because when you think about it, who has Tennessee beaten? They beat Alabama, who everyone's laughed at is not in the playoff. So, so if that's your best win and that's the win that you're holding your hat on as to why you got into the playoff, shouldn't Alabama have been in there? So when you look at Tennessee, their schedule very, very favorable. Outside of the win against Alabama, the second best win on their season in terms of FPI is your lovable Florida Gators. Can you believe that?
They lost to Arkansas.
They lost to Arkansas. No one talks about that. But because you're 10-2 and because you're in the SEC, you're auto put in the playoff. So Alabama, you messed up when you lost that Oklahoma game or the Vandy game because it would have been you auto in the playoff, even though now that would have been an interesting situation. Logan, let's talk about that. Well, maybe not. But if Alabama somehow beats Vandy and they're 10-2 and Tennessee's 10-2, who the hell are you putting in then? Because at that point, they're going to come out, they're going to say, well, Tennessee beat Alabama, so they should go in, even though they have no more wins against anybody good. And then Alabama, people are going to say, well, Texas only made it in last year because they beat Alabama. So I didn't think Texas should have been in last year. I thought it should have been Georgia. So Tennessee should. They're in because they're 10-2 and you had an easy schedule. Okay? You didn't have to play Texas. You didn't have to play Texas A&M. You didn't have to play who didn't you have to play? Well, you played Georgia.
They played Georgia and got clapped by Georgia.
They didn't have to play Ole Miss. Lucky as hell. You didn't have to play
LSU.
Ole Miss. Who the hell else did we just say? LSU, Ole Miss, Texas or Texas A&M. You didn't have to play any of those teams. We had to play all four of those teams.
Yeah.
Didn't we? Didn't we have to play all four of those teams? And you didn't even have to play South Carolina. You didn't have to play any of those teams. Now, you did play Alabama and Georgia. Okay, you went 1-1. But then you played the other bottom teams. And then Florida was your best win outside of Alabama. So, anyway. Ohio State. Ryan Day. Okay. This is a game where, Logan, I'm going to tell you, even though we're shit talking Tennessee, there's got to be an upset. Now, the strategy is you just pick all the straight games and then you just get screwed on whatever the upset is. Because if you actually try to deliberately pick the upset, you're going to miss it and then you're screwed.
Right.
So the thing is, when you look at the profiles of the teams that have beaten Ohio State and really give Ohio State some problems, it's almost like I do AI and I say, AI, tell me the teams that are going to give Ohio State a problem. You know what AI probably comes back with? A big fat picture of Smokey, the freaking Tennessee dog. And then he's ready to go in there and shoot him up at the shoe and plant the flag and get a felony. Wouldn't that be great if the mascot, you had the dog go plant the flag, say, hey boy, go plant the flag in the middle, and he goes down and plants it, and it's like Felony on the dog. No one says felony on the dog.
That's great. That's
No one
great.
says felony on the dog. Got to train the dog to plant the flag.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is a game that is gonna. This is the team. This is the style of team that will screw with the picks. Tennessee defense. They stuff the run. You can't run on them. You can't run. Tennessee offense. They split you. They literally are an inch off the sideline. They're wide receivers. And they force your defense to go all the way out there so they can hit you at the middle with Dylan Sampson. Then Ohio State's like, well, how do we stop this? And then Ryan Day's like, well, do we have the ball back? Tennessee is going to keep this game close throughout the entire game. This game is going to be very close, people. It's going to look like Michigan.
Bro, the Ryan Day going, do we have the ball back?
No, coach, they're about to score.
Oh, man, that was good.
Tennessee is going to keep this game, even though we just shit talked them because their resume. They are going to keep this game close. It's going to come down to the quarterback. That's the game. That's the question I always ask. Who's got the better defense? Who's got the better quarterback? I'm saying Tennessee's got the better defense in this game. Even though Ohio State's talent profile is better,
I agree.
Tennessee's defense has performed. The Nico Imaliava, okay, versus Will Howard. Who the hell knows how that's going to turn out? Give me. Wait, what's the cover in this game?
7.5.
Tennessee covers. The Vols. It's going to take a last-second field. I'm telling y'all. It's going to take a last-second field goal to beat Tennessee if you're Ohio State. And they're going to say, well, it's cold up there in Columbus. Have y'all been to Knoxville lately? I'm freezing my ass off up there. Tennessee they don't care about they play in the mountains. They are going to go up there and they are going to give Ohio State everything they want. And Peter, Ohio State, well, I thought we were a top seed. Why are we losing to this Tennessee team? Tennessee covers.
Good pick. Good pick. I think this is matchup of the weekend. I really do. I think it's going to be game of the week. This might be game of the playoff, honestly. I don't think either way it would be an upset, if that makes sense. Like, I could really see both teams winning this football game. I'm surprised the spread's not like 3.5. I agree. Tennessee's front seven has not only stopped the run, but gotten to the quarterback. They have one of the best front sevens in the country, top 5 front sevens in the country, and Ohio State does not have an offensive line, or at least a consistent offensive line against pass rush especially. That's what helped Oregon win that game against Ohio State early on. And Tennessee fits that same profile. Here's my thing. If you're Ohio State and you lose this game, where are you at as a program? Ryan Day has to be... he's already on the chopping block. And I feel like he's probably gone if he loses this game to Tennessee. In Columbus? You just lost to Michigan in Columbus, and you're going to have back-to-back losses with another loss against a Tennessee team? Are you serious? You're going to lose to Nico? You're going to lose to Nico. Because of that, I'm putting all my chips into the Ryan Day basket here. We saw how well his offense performed against an Indiana team. And here's the thing. Ohio State should have had 5 touchdowns on Michigan, but inside of the 20-yard line, they had like 4 turnovers. It was insane. They had like 3 turnovers and then drives that got stalled by penalties. If Ohio State plays a clean game, they win this game. And they win this game and they cover. I'm putting all my eggs in that basket. I say they show up. I say they perform consistently on offense. I think it's going to be a nasty game, a physical game on both sides of the ball. I think Will Howard performs well. I think he knows that front seven. I think he knows by now his offensive line's not the best, and that front seven from Tennessee is scary. I think he's prepared. I think Ohio State wins and they cover. They get a late score to make it 10 points. I think they win something like, I don't know, 14-24. I'm not a fan of Nico, dude. I'm just not a fan of him. If you're Ohio State, I'm playing cover 1, cover 0 this whole game. Hey, Nico, you can't hit a deep ball to save your life. Do it on our defense in Columbus, Ohio at night. They have not had a night game in Columbus in such a long time. It's always noon. They hate it. It's like a funny joke how they can never get a night game there. Guess what? You have a night game. And the fans are going to be rowdy because of that. I don't think Nico performs well, and I think he throws a couple picks. Ohio State at least gets a few scores off of that. I have Ohio State winning, like I said, probably something like 27-17 or because we've seen with Georgia. Georgia's offense was able to score 31 points on Tennessee's defense. I think Ohio State can do something maybe not as good, but something similar. I think Ohio State comes out, gets the win. Ryan Day can have a little bit more peace for one day, and it's and that big American flag they have in Columbus Stadium is gonna be flying high going into the night there. So I have Ohio State winning, have them covering. But either way, would not surprise me. I cannot wait to watch this game. Like I said, we'll be at our family Christmas thing, and I'll be probably listening to that on the way home. So gonna be crazy. Cannot wait for it. So there you go. Our picks for the college football playoff. You guys can join. We have our whole bracket available. Link will be in the description down below. Join our bracket and create or join our little group. You can create your own bracket with us. We have I think 7-8 people in there right now. People are joining each day, so go check that out. Link will be in the description. Drop your bracket, and we'll see who is right about that. Because I was looking at some of the brackets. Some of them are very different. Because think about it. If you have one team getting an upset, then what does that rest of that bracket look like? That could screw up the rest of the bracket, or you don't know what's going to happen. So the brackets are very different. It's like March Madness. It's great. Go check it out. Link will be in the description down below. Going to be one hell of a weekend. Before we go, EJ did something. He pulled something from Josh, like Josh Pate did. A couple other people did it on what the college football playoff, because you guys know our feelings on the playoff and how much we think the layout is an absolute joke right now. And EJ pulled what the top 12 would look like without the automatic bids for conference championships. And I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. Hold up, let me open this with into a new window real quick. And I want you guys to see how amazing these matchups are. So, let me go ahead and pull this up for you guys. Real quick. And then boom. 1 second. Boom. All right. So as you guys can see, EJ, you want to take him through it?
Yeah. So this is what the playoff would look like. And Josh Pate, who we all love, he's great. He put together, this is what the playoff would look like if it was just the top 12. Because a lot of people are still confused. Because they'll look at the college football playoff rankings and see Alabama's number 11, and then we'll say, well, Alabama's not in the playoff. And then we're like, but I thought it was the top 12. Anyway, so this is what the top 12 would look like if you didn't get an automatic bid. They just said, we're going to take the top 12 teams. Then you say, look at the top 4. This is what the top 4 would have looked like if the playoffs were this past season. It's really hard to dispute this being the top 4. It's the SEC championship game winners versus the Big Ten championship game winners. Now, the reality is, what sucks is you might get a rematch in those championship games based on how this plays out, right? But that's just how it goes. It's much more aligned with how you reward the top seed. If Oregon is the number 1 overall seed, they shouldn't have to play what is written down, the winner of the 7 versus 6 game. They should be playing the winner of the 8-9 game, which is Boise, Indiana. That would be a phenomenal 8-9 game. If you're Georgia, um, well, Georgia, I think Georgia actually gets rewarded, right? Because, um, or no, it's Penn State. Penn
Yeah.
State is the team that gets rewarded because, you know, of how the current seeds are. But Notre Dame versus Arizona State would be the top 5 versus 12. Alabama versus Ohio State. How would you not want to see Alabama versus Ohio State? And if you're Ohio State, you're kind of like, oh man, that's a tough game. Tennessee beat Alabama, people. Y'all forget about that. SMU, Tennessee. That is a game. Okay, show us. Show us. So this is really how it should be. Now they're saying that they're going to make some changes. Me and Logan kind of feel you don't even need this. Just give us the top 6, like the top 4 plus, 5 and 6. The top 2 get a bye.
Which in this case would be I'm sorry, I can't see him. Who's 5 and 6 in this?
Notre Dame and Ohio State.
Sounds great to me. That's literally like I'll say this right now. I guarantee you one of the top 6 will win the national championship this year. I guarantee it.
Oh yeah, 100%. There's no way, even in like a sport like college basketball, where you have 350 teams, and technically the 4 seeds are the 4 number 1 seeds are the top 4 when they do the rankings of all 68 teams. In the last 30 years, 23 national champions have been a number 1 seed. So even in basketball, where there's more parity, it is very rare where the team that is the best team is not already in the top 4. So somebody in the top 4 is going to win it, folks. Okay? So to me, this is how it should be, but you get these weird rankings now that you have Arizona State gets to be number 4. Then you have Texas doesn't get a bye. Georgia gets a bye. Penn State has to play in the first round. And then Arizona State and Boise get byes, even
Oregon
though
has the hardest schedule.
Oregon, the number 1 seed, gets the hardest schedule because you have to bump down those teams. So it's stupid. Like it is who made this? Who made this? And they say, well, the conferences, they would never agree. Well, we just tell them, okay, automatic bid, I guess it's what it is. But you know what I was thinking? And this is a friend that gave me this argument the other day. And he was talking about it's basically affirmative action. Because it's like, they got rid of affirmative action. And where you get in because of the group that you're in, as opposed to did you really earn it, right? And then there's controversy on the whole thing, but that's basically what it is. You're saying, well, we are gonna be in because we're in the ACC, even though there are 5 teams in the SEC that are better than your champion. And in fact, the team that's ranked 6th in the current standings beat your champion on their home field. So that's why it's like that, where we have to include everyone, even though you're not necessarily the best team. That's what makes the playoff very challenging in this format. If it's a compromise where we say, okay, the conference champions automatically get in, I could go along with that. But I think you have to do it where it doesn't affect the seedings, where you don't get an automatic bye when you're in the Mountain West. Like that should not ever happen. So there's my thought.
I agree. I mean, like we were saying, I think a 6-team playoff, 6 to 8 is perfect, with the first, like, top 2 getting a bye, like you were talking about with 6-team. But even the 12 team with no auto bid, just makes sense. I still don't think that teams like Arizona State, teams like Alabama deserve a shot at the national championship. You know what I mean? I think the top 6 teams do with Notre Dame and
Yeah.
um what is it? Notre Dame and Ohio State. Like I think they do. And I don't know. I think the system right now is terrible. Like you said, you're basically saying, hey, you know what? Even though you play in the ACC, even if you were put in the SEC and we're like 6-6, 7-5, just because you're in the ACC, let's throw you in there. Makes no sense. You defeat the whole purpose of a playoff. You defeat the whole purpose of a national championship. And I think that that's terrible.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was also something that we showed each other this week about like a conference bracket. So you take the top 4 teams of the conference, let them battle it out with the Power Four, right? So you got like SEC, the top 4 teams battle it out. So you still keep the conference games, the conference championship games, right? Because people are then saying go away with the conference championship games like the NFL does, right? Because that causes controversy. That's the problem. People are wanting to make the playoff big like the NFL, but the NFL doesn't have conference championship games, or they do, but that's late. It's different. There's 2 conferences, not 4 main ones, not 5 if you include the one of the group of 5. So it's like it's too much, right? It's a very different system. And so I also don't even mind that. If you say screw it, give the top 4 teams in the conference a shot to battle it out, especially in a year like the SEC like this where it's so even at the top. Say screw it, have fun with it. I like that. And then the top 2 on each side going in, and then those 2 battling it out in the national championship. I think that's awesome, and it still gives worth to the conference championship, significant worth. If you win that, you make it to the end. I think that's awesome, or you make it to that next round. But yeah, the auto bids I think are horrific, and it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. I think it's a joke. Should be 6 teams, like I said, but at least get rid of the auto bids. Like EJ was talking about, I have a feeling they're going to make it a 16-team playoff or a 14-man playoff, and all you're doing is providing a solution to the wrong issue, the wrong problem. And if you can come up with the best solution in the world, but if you put it toward the wrong problem, you're not going to see any change. You're going to see change. You're going to see more problems arise, and that's what I'm not excited about. So,
No, you're right.
That's my thoughts on it.
Right.
Either way. I'm excited. We got more football. That's the only cool thing coming from it. But yeah, system's an absolute joke, and you just kind of feel bad for it. But that's my thoughts on it. EJ, anything else you want to add?
Outside of the playoff, which we'll see how it goes. Um, Real quick, basketball.
Go for
So
it.
as basketball season goes on, I'll do some more videos on the basketball team. But
Follow us on Instagram. He'll do reels and stuff on there.
oh yeah, I'll do reels and stuff on Instagram. Thank you for that. It's we got a pretty good little team. We're kind of like a buzzsaw almost. Like I've noticed with this team, we have dynamic scorers, but when we score, we it motivates us to play hard on defense. So like we are really stopping people. And when you look at the whole basketball landscape right now, the SEC is just I don't know what's happening, but we're just killing people. We're dominating. Um, and it makes sense and it kind of correlates to football. It's like if the best teams are in your conference, you have to build your team and your roster to compete in your conference, right? And so more money, more NIL, you're getting better players, you're getting better coaches, you're buying better coaches. The SEC now is just by far and away better than all the other conferences, and it's not even close. Um, Florida right now, this is our best team since that team that went to the Elite Eight. We'll see how that translates in the SEC, which is a very, I mean, Auburn and Tennessee are the top 1 and 2. And you have Kentucky and Florida, who are also in the top 10. And you have a host of other teams that are really good. So It's going to be wild in the SEC this year. Our first game is going to be at Lexington in Kentucky. I actually think we could beat Kentucky. Like if that was in Gainesville, I'd be like, okay, we're definitely winning this game. But we get hosed in football, we get hosed in basketball. We for some reason we have a tough basketball schedule. Our next game is Tuesday against North Carolina
Mm.
in Charlotte at the Jumpman Invitational. So if your Jumpman is your apparel, you playing in that invitational. We play North Carolina. Here's the thing. Y'all need to watch that game. North Carolina, everybody's going, oh, North Carolina's going to win. I don't know, guys. I think we can handle them. North Carolina, they do not play defense very well. That is not going to translate in this game. I think Florida's going to win that one pretty. We should win it
Listen,
outright.
we have Clayton Jr., bro. He's going off. He's
Oh
going
yeah,
off.
he's going.
Let him do his
He's
thing, baby.
incredible. He's incredible. Clayton Jr. is like Steph Curry. Elijah Martin, I call him Aston Martin. Okay, I call him Aston Martin. He's like Dwayne Wade out there. Like defense, shooting, like his shot even looks like Dwayne Wade. And he gets to the basket, dunks it like Dwayne Wade. This guy's incredible. Condon is like the Australian stallion out there. He's unstoppable. Thomas Hout comes off the bench and is like Dennis Rodman. So this team is really, 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 really good. Todd Golden has done an excellent job, but he'll probably just tell you, hey, I'm just trying to compete in the SEC because the SEC is really tough in basketball. But here's the interesting thing. So the SEC hasn't won the national championship in basketball since 2012 when Kentucky won it. So that's been what, 12 years, 13 years?
Jeez, yeah.
The Big Ten, as much as the Big Ten thinks that they're so good at basketball, they haven't won it since 2000. Michigan State. And guess who they beat to win it? Florida Gators. So these two great conferences haven't won championships in a while. It's been the Big East. And the thing about the Big East and the ACC is they've been very versatile. And when you get in the tournament, you have to win multiple different types of ways, which I think is a different mentality that's going to start affecting college football. Because when you think about college football, how college football has been designed is, and Lane Kiffin comes out and talks about this all the time, we have to design our team to beat the best teams in our conference, right? So he built his team to beat Georgia. Okay, you forgot about Florida. You forgot about Kentucky, apparently. But now that you get into the playoff, it's going to be the playoff era. It's not going to be about, well, we're good enough to win in the SEC. We should be good enough to beat anyone in the nation. True, but not always, because you're going to have different styles of play when you get into the playoff. And it's if maybe the line of scrimmage can just win you the national championship, but when you're playing in these other leagues where people are going to start spreading the ball out and you're going to be chasing them all over the field, maybe it's a little bit different. You got to design your team. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out in that standpoint, or if the SEC, Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee come out and dominate. It'd be interesting to see if all three of those teams win in their first game. Because that will affect everything. But like you were saying, we're not the NFL where the worst teams get the first pick to try to balance it out. The worst teams stay the worst teams.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So there you go.
There you go. Got to keep watching Florida basketball. First really big test of the season, I would say. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be exciting. Yep. Yeah, the SEC, dude, it's so deep, dude. There's like, they're all like 9-1, 10-0. It's insane. It's going to be crazy. Going to be excited to see that. And do you know what day the SEC conference play starts? Did you say it?
So we're going to start Saturday, January 4th, I want to say.
Gotcha.
Is the opening game at Lexington in Kentucky.
In Kentucky, right.
And then the very next game is going to be against Tennessee. So Kentucky's number 5, Tennessee's number 1. So your first 2 games are against top 5 teams.
Jesus.
Then you played Saturday against Arkansas, who I think Arkansas is ranked because John Calipari is their coach. So it's like man, you just start out with
Auburn looks insane.
Auburn is insane.
Yeah, jeez.
They are so good.
It's going to be brutal.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But EJ will keep you updated. Once again, if you go to the description. There's so many links down there. Go check it out. And to our Instagram. So definitely do that. But yeah, that's all we got for you guys today, man. EJ, any last words you want to tell everybody?
Everybody keep watching us. Like and subscribe. Oh, yeah, like and subscribe, guys.
Yeah.
So more people can see our stuff.
There you go.
And our picks and our everything. Hey, I feel like we're better than most of these experts out here.
Facts.
Right?
Fact. Dude, give me a mascot head right now. I'll take it. You know what I mean? Yeah, seriously. Listen, also, if you click share, copy links, send it to like a random college football fan, a Gator fan, whoever, whatever. Send it to one friend, and I think that'd be great for us too, man. We're out here really pushing this, so we appreciate you guys. Love y'all. Like, subscribe, comment down below, like EJ said. See you next week, baby.
Peace.